Hi everybody, Per Bristow here, and I am here in the studio with two fascinating guys. We got Donnie Scantz, we got Jahi Sundance, and these guys are some really cool producers, and we're going to have a stimulating conversation here, and I think you're really going to be excited about it. And thanks guys for taking the time and chatting here a little bit.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming over, man.
Thank you. And for Don and Jai, he knows that I have the Singing Zone. So for you who are members of the Singing Zone, or if you're watching this and you're not members, you know, we have all kinds of different kinds of singers. So even if you're a professional singer, up and coming artist, or if you're a complete beginner, I really encourage you to tune in here because these guys have some really valuable stuff to share. They've been around. You've done a couple of things. As a matter of fact, Donnie has 2 Grammy nominations for your work with Usher.
Yes, I was blessed to be able to engineer his session and mix his vocals for his duet with Lil Jon, and I think that was in 2006.
Oh, 6, right?
Yeah.
This
And we were
song, yeah, right?
Yeah, the Yeah and Confessions.
Yeah.
It was nominated for Album of the Year and for Song of the Year. We lost against Ray Charles. That was the year that he died, but
That's okay.
as well as it was just a big deal for us to be able to even just be nominated, you know, on the same ticket. So, you know, just shouts out to my time in Atlanta and for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah. And you work with Tony Braxton, Chris Brown, a bunch of artists. And
Well-
yeah.
Well, my career, it started out a long time ago, actually. I grew up in Houston, Texas,
Yeah.
and I was working with a group named Ideal, who was signed to Virgin Records at the time. And through my time with them, it brought me to Atlanta, and a production company in Atlanta named Noontime at the time came on to do a lot of Ideal's projects. So they saw me as a producer, and they invited me into their doors, eventually signing me. And then I built my production relationships throughout my time in Atlanta, having the opportunity to work with like Tony Braxton and Shantae Moore and Aaliyah and some of the other artists that came through the system there at Noontime.
Right, right. And Jahi is a DJ extraordinaire.
Yeah, yeah. I've been DJing for about 16 years. I've been fortunate enough to go on tour with a lot of different artists, from Michelle and Cello to Rusted Root to, I mean, just a bunch of different people. I've done performances with Saul Williams, performances with Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Dead Prez, Common, Bilal. I've just been fortunate in the DJ game when I was living in New York. And I moved out here about 5-6 years ago to chase down this producing dream, and that's when me and Donnie linked up and started working together.
Right, right. And part of the reason why we're chatting with you guys also is because you don't only work with the established artists, you're actually working with the up and coming. Do we call them up and coming? And as a matter of fact, you're right now in the middle of something exciting with a young guy, right?
Yes. Well, we have a project called Like a Rose. That's an embodiment of a contemplative love story. The artist's name is LaRon Brant. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's an up-and-coming or developing artist. I just think that he's an artist.
Okay, good. All right.
You know?
We've just been lucky enough to intersect with him at a point where he had all these feelings to express, and I think it's important that producers nowadays particularly have a tendency to just get into the zone of making songs, and I feel like getting back to making albums is important, and he's the type of artist that wants to make an album. And we're the type of producers that want to make albums. We want to make singles too, but we want to make singles as part of the album. When the single used to tell the story of the album, and then you would go into the album and you would hear more about what you experienced in the single, and that's kind of changed now, where the single is just the single, and you listen to the album and it's just a bunch of people trying to have a bunch of singles.
Right.
And I think that it's important for us as producers to work with artists like LaRon, who's a special artist. Like we really love to work with people who aren't afraid to make music. You know what I mean? To
Okay.
make great music.
Talk a little bit more about the creation of these songs, for example, how that came about.
Well, I think our environment plays a lot into how we create these records.
Okay.
Usually in the studio environment, you'd have, a scheduled session that's paid for this block of time.
Right.
This is where we live every single day.
You live here.
We basically live and breathe our lives here every
Yeah.
single day,
Right.
with the opportunity to express ourselves in a way that is immediate.
Uh-huh.
So these songs, in the sense of the creative process, where it may have you, I may be in here working on an idea, or Jahi may be in here working on an idea, and it'll fuse itself together based upon the elements of however anyone is feeling that day. I might come in and complete the idea. He might, hear something on an idea that I'm working on. LaRon might come in from the other room where he might have just woke up out of the vocal booth and I hear a melody to that. Or I went through this last night. Can you believe that, this happened to me? And then next thing you know, there's a catchphrase in that, and we were like, okay, well, you might need to go in the booth and at least lay that idea down. And then the idea might turn into a story, and that story might turn into a melody, and that melody is comprised on this beat. And next thing you know, even though the beat is what it is, after the song is put on it, it might turn into something totally different.
Right.
Really?
Just because now we have a song that has to be felt a certain kind of way and interpreted with what, LaRon brought to the table.
Right.
And so we might scratch the whole beat that's on the record and do what is now required for that song to come alive.
So how much stuff or creative ideas have you've tried out that may not end up on the? Is there?
Oh man, the log of that it's different with every artist and it's different with every project. For Like a Rose, it's been really something that LaRon had a vision of at first. That I think the way he's telling this love story is really interesting and important. And so whenever we would be starting ideas or working on music, or whenever he would have a certain feeling, we would vibe it out together or work on it. So there really hasn't been, with this project, a lot of starting of songs that didn't get finished or whatever, because each song he's trying to make a specific statement about this story that he's trying to tell. And so for this project specifically, I would say as producers, we went through a lot of ideas musically, but as far as LaRon with his songwriting, he basically wrote really strong ideas because he already knew what he wanted to say. But as far as us, we could go through four or five complete musical ideas underneath a song he's written over the course of a 3-day period, where I could sit in here and get one started, and he'll sit in here and get one started, or I'll go over there, and there's always something happening. And we just came up on a song that we're just adding to the album very last minute. That was a song that was started a while ago and had a totally different vibe and a totally different beat. But then when we realized, wait a second, we need to get it into this project, so we changed the beat 2 or 3 times.
Well, let's talk about vocals. Well, first, let me just say a little bit about what I noticed then when that introduction, the intro to Love Again. There's some smooth guitars there.
Guitar, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't pick it up in the 3rd grade.
I kind of wish I did.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have picked guitar up in the 3rd grade. But no, drums, don't get it twisted. I love playing drums. I grew up around some of the best drummers in the world that inspired and influenced me, and that are still working to this day. And drums is definitely my thing. But for some reason, when it came to tracks and building tracks, I always gravitated to guitar. I think one thing the industry has done, which is why the industry is in a state of emergency, is culturally separate people's perspectives on music. And I studied classical music, but I don't think that that's just culturally, in one specific frame of mind. You know, like there is classical music that I could go and sit to that I would love to listen to at certain moods. You know, that doesn't just necessarily culturally put me in a certain bracket. But the industry, in a sense, has labeled like rock guitars, you know, as doing something out of the norm or different, you know, whereas culturally not acceptable in R&B music per se. But the history of R&B music, it doesn't necessarily say that either, because you have groups like the Isley Brothers who've used distorted guitars in many of their records, and it has been straight R&B. But we do consider ourselves urban alternative. And it doesn't necessarily, because when I listen to rock music and I hear like Green Day in my head and I hear Queens of the Stone Age in my mind, they sound totally different than what I'm producing. But I enjoy what I'm listening to. And I love to hear some of those finger-style riffs, you know, from the elements that they do have. Maybe it would sound cool if I put it in here over this urban banging beat and made it feel this type of way. And an artist like LaRon, who is exposed to everything, you know, he's a mixed race person from Minnesota. You know, he's white and black, so he grew up listening to everything. But when he hears the fusion of all the things that he's inspired in our music, and it clicks with him, he knows how to react to it. And those are the things that make us different than I think, you know, you're running the mill just average. So yeah, we use guitars. I mean, we'll play guitars in our tracks in a way you've never heard them played before, because it is a lost art, and we would like for you to be inspired by it again. Just like when I saw that first drummer that did something crazy on the drum kit that made me say, I want to play drums.
So let me just shift a little bit to vocals. A lot of people out here are interested in vocals, and when you listen to this music, we want to listen and get the emotional aspect of the whole thing, but it's interesting to listen to details also. And you'll hear a lot of background, a lot of harmonies and stuff. So listen to the vocals, listen to the backups. We don't call them backups.
Yeah,
additional vocals.
The additional vocals.
Yeah, but it really adds to the whole soundscape of the songs.
In a lot of the songs, there was a few spaces that were just, for example, if I'm working on a song and I have lyrics in one space and I have a few seconds to breathe in between, say bars, I would just maybe hum melodies in between my lyrics and just see what it sounds like. Stack them, different octaves, just playing around with different notes and stuff like that.
So same principle as we talked about before, a lot of testing, trying stuff.
Definitely. Trial and error. Really.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for everybody.
I was just going to add that, you know, technology nowadays has given us a whole lot of freedom and flexibility in what we can do and how we can do it.
Right.
You know, so you could stack upon stack as many vocals as you would like just to see what comes out of it. So whether those ranges, you know, go in intervals so they can create chords, and those chords, you know, turn into different melodic phrases within your songs, then those are the, you know, that's the makeup of the sweet parts of the records. You know, and LaRon does that well when he's in there, like he was just saying, in those spaces. He might hum something and be like, okay, just let me hear that hum that I did. It might just be an utterance of anything, you know, but just let me hear that hum, and then let me try to put this harmony over it. Then he might go back to it and be like, okay, well, I feel these words in place of those hums.
Right.
And then he'll melodically sing the words, and they'll turn into those phrases that get harmonized. And then you'll stack the vocals 3 or 4 times, give it a lush feeling in it, and there you have it.
Yeah.